There's a moment when people stop laughing with you and start watching you, not because you said something wrong, but because you've changed, because something about the way you move, the way you think, the way you carry yourself, suddenly makes them uncomfortable. This isn't about having degrees. This isn't about speaking the loudest or winning every argument. This is a different kind of intelligence, a rare one. It's built in silence. It's forged in restraint. And it's dangerous not because it hurts anyone, but because it can't be figured out. See, real intelligence doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need a spotlight. It doesn't chase attention. It walks into a room and shifts the energy not by being loud, but by being still. You don't react. You don't seek validation. You listen. You observe. And when you do speak, people stop talking because they know it's going to matter. And in that moment, something shifts. You stop being predictable. You stop being easy to read. And suddenly you become the most dangerous person in the room, the one who doesn't need to control others because he's already mastered himself. That's what this video is about. We're going to explore 9 timeless lessons from Marcus Aurelius' lessons that helped him rule an empire without losing his mind, his morals, or his clarity. These are not motivational quotes. These are field-tested principles forged in the chaos of betrayal, war, and politics, and they can transform the way you show up in your own life. If you've ever felt like your intelligence makes people uncomfortable, if you've ever been told you've changed just because you stopped reacting emotionally, if you've ever sat in silence while others talked nonsense and then shifted the entire conversation with one sentence, you're in the right place, because the smartest people don't prove themselves with words. They prove themselves by what they withhold. So get ready, because this isn't just a lesson in philosophy. It's a roadmap to becoming the man no one can manipulate. Let's get one thing straight from the beginning. Silence is not weakness. It's not passivity. It's not fear. It's not the absence of something to say. Silence, when chosen with intention, is power in its purest form. It's focus. It's control. It's strategy. We live in a world addicted to noise. Everyone is talking, posting, reacting, trying to prove something. And in all that chaos, the man who chooses silence becomes different, not because he's invisible, but because he's unpredictable, and people fear what they can't predict. You see, most people associate strength with sound. They think the loudest person in the room is the leader. The boldest voice must be the most confident. But that's not confidence, that's compensation. It's easy to talk, it's easy to react. It's easy to be loud when you're trying to hide how uncentered you really are. But silence. Silence requires restraint. Silence requires certainty. Silence requires self-command. And that's exactly why Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic minds in history, valued silence more than speech. Because silence isn't just the absence of noise, it's the presence of awareness. When you're silent, you're not disconnected, you're tuned in. You're listening. You're studying the room. You're absorbing what others miss because they're too busy trying to be heard. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a conversation where you said nothing for most of the time, and yet by the end of it, you had the most impact just by saying a few words? That wasn't luck. That was leverage. Silence gives you that edge. The Stoics understood this. They didn't speak to fill the air. They spoke to change the atmosphere. They didn't react emotionally. They responded with clarity. And most of the time, they didn't respond at all, because not everything deserves your energy. You see, when you speak less, you see more. You stop chasing validation. You stop over-explaining. And you begin to realize that true presence doesn't come from how much you say, but from what you choose not to say. It's why some men can walk into a room and instantly shift the mood without saying a word, because people can feel it. They sense the control, the calm, the sharpness behind your eyes. That's the kind of man you become when you master silence. And let's be honest, we've all met the opposite. the loud one, the overtalker, the guy who dominates every conversation but never actually says anything. Loud doesn't mean strong, fast doesn't mean smart, talking doesn't mean thinking. In fact, the men who can't stop talking are usually the ones who don't know how to sit with their own thoughts. They fear silence because silence forces them to face themselves. But you've trained differently. You've learned that the loudest move is the one you don't make. When you withhold, when you pause, when you choose stillness over reaction, you gain something no amount of noise can offer: clarity. You protect your peace, you conserve your energy, and you maintain your power. Because every time you react emotionally, you give someone else control. But when you sit back not with fear but with presence and simply watch, you remain unreadable, unshakable, and untouchable. That's what silence gives you. Not emptiness, amplification, not retreat, leverage, not fear, authority. So the next time the world tries to bait you into reacting, pause, observe, and remember, the loudest man in the room might get attention, but the quiet one, the one who sees everything and says nothing, that man gets respect. And in the long game of life, respect always outranks applause. Emotional intelligence isn't about burying your feelings. It's not about pretending you're okay when you're clearly not. And it's definitely not about being a cold, unfeeling machine. No, emotional intelligence is about timing. It's about mastery over impulse. It's knowing when to speak, and more importantly, when to stay silent, not to avoid conflict, but to protect your energy. Because here's the hard truth. The world will always try to provoke you, push your buttons, throw words at you just to see how fast you'll react. And the quicker you do, the more power you give away. You see, the person who reacts immediately is the easiest to control. If I can make you mad in 2 seconds, I own you. If I can trigger you with a sentence, I control your next 5 moves. That's not strength, that's a puppet on strings. But when you learn to pause, when you train yourself to feel without exploding, that's when something shifts inside you. That's emotional strength. That's when you start moving like someone who can't be baited, can't be read, can't be shaken. And that is power. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This isn't just philosophy, it's strategy for modern life. Because here's what most people get wrong. They think silence in conflict is weakness. They think not reacting makes them small. They think the louder they yell, the more they win. But the Stoics knew better. To them, silence was not suppression. It was self-possession. When someone insults you and you don't respond, that doesn't mean you're hurt. It means you're unbothered. It means you value your peace more than your pride. You're not holding your tongue out of fear. You're holding your tongue out of choice. That's what makes you dangerous. Because people don't know where you stand. They can't manipulate what they can't predict. They start second-guessing themselves, wondering what you're thinking, what you'll do next, because they can't read you like they can everyone else. And that right there is the difference between reaction and response. Reaction is primal, it's emotional, it's blind. Response is strategic, it's intentional, it's clear. And the truth is, the person who can pause in the heat of the moment, gather themselves, and speak from center, that person owns the conversation. They don't get dragged into emotional storms. They observe the storm and decide whether it's even worth stepping into. That's emotional intelligence. It's not about shutting down. It's about staying open without getting pulled out of alignment. Now let me ask you something. How many times have you said something in anger, something sharp, something you didn't mean and then regretted it? And how many times have you not said something and later felt proud that you didn't stoop to that level? You see, silence gives you time to choose your words instead of your words choosing you. It protects you from battles that were never worth fighting in the first place. It shields your energy from people who only seek to drain it. Because not every opinion needs your rebuttal. Not every insult needs a defense. And not every fight deserves your fire. There's a quiet dignity in walking away, not because you couldn't win, but because it's not worth it to lose yourself just to prove a point. The real victory, keeping your peace when someone's trying to take it. So the next time you feel that urge to clap back, to shout, to set the record straight, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Or is this just noise trying to rent space in my mind? Because once you know the difference, you stop playing the game. You stop giving power to what doesn't deserve it. You stop talking just to be heard and start speaking only when it moves the needle. And when you do speak with calm, with clarity, with purpose, people listen because they know you didn't speak out of anger. You spoke from strength. And strength, my friend, doesn't shout. It whispers and still moves mountains. Let me ask you something. When you walk into a room, do you feel the need to speak first? Or do you observe? Do you fill the silence out of discomfort? Or do you use it as a tool? Because here's a powerful truth. Real leaders aren't the loudest voices in the room. They're the ones who listen deeply, observe fully, and speak last, not because they're unsure, but because their words are earned. We live in a world where everyone wants to talk. Everyone wants to be heard. Social media rewards noise, reaction, and speed. But leadership is built in the quiet moments. Leadership is about discernment, knowing when to hold back, when to engage, and when to let your silence speak louder than any words ever could. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, Stoic philosopher, leader during war, betrayal, and plague, understood this well. He led not by dominating every conversation, but by mastering his inner world first. He journaled. He reflected. He questioned his own motives before judging others. He once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." And in leadership, that means don't mimic the chaos. Don't match the noise. You don't need to speak constantly to command respect. You just need your words to mean something when you do speak. True leaders speak with weight. They speak with earned silence behind their voice. They speak with clarity, not ego. Think of the people you respect most. Now ask yourself, was it how often they spoke? Or how deeply their words landed? Great leadership is like a lighthouse. It doesn't run around looking for ships to save. It stands tall, radiates steady light, and lets others come to it. And people do. Because when you have calm certainty, when you don't rush to prove or defend yourself, you become magnetic. People listen because you're not trying to convince. You're rooted. You're composed. And here's the paradox. The more grounded you are, the less you need to speak, and yet the more people want to hear you. You've probably seen this play out. In meetings, the loudest person talks for 20 minutes, circling, rambling, repeating. But when the real leader leans forward and says one sentence, the whole room shifts. That's not magic. That's wisdom backed by silence. You earn that kind of presence not by shouting, but by refining your thoughts before releasing them. You lead not by dominating, but by understanding. When people feel seen by you, heard by you, even before you open your mouth, they trust you, they respect you, not because you took up space, but because you created space for everyone else to rise. And then, when it's time, you speak with calm precision. That's what Marcus Aurelius did. In the chaos of war, in the heat of betrayal, in the noise of Roman politics, he chose stillness over spectacle. He let silence do the heavy lifting until a few carefully chosen words were all it took to move armies, to calm rebellion, to inspire resilience. Ask yourself today, what kind of leader do you want to be? The one who reacts to every moment, constantly defending, explaining over talking to prove authority? Or the one who pauses, processes, and only speaks when it serves a higher purpose? Because in the end, people don't follow volume. They follow vision. They follow someone who has gone within, done the work, and now moves from clarity, not chaos. So remember this the next time you feel the urge to speak. just to fill the silence. Don't. Let your silence build weight behind your presence. Let your calm become your leadership. Let your words be few but unforgettable. True leaders speak less because they listen. More observe better, and when they finally speak, they shift the entire room. Have you ever thought about your words like money? Every time you speak, you're spending something. Not dollars, not coins, but energy, intention, power. Words are currency, and like all currency, they should be spent with purpose. But most people talk like they've got an unlimited supply. They waste words trying to impress, to explain, to fill silence that was never meant to be filled. They give away their thoughts, their strategies too easily. And then they wonder why they feel depleted, why they feel misunderstood, why they lose influence without even realizing it. Here's what the Stoics knew. The wise speak less not because they're timid, but because they're calculating. Every time you speak, you're giving away a part of your mindset. You're revealing how you think, what you value, where your weaknesses might be. The sharpest minds don't speak to be heard, they observe to understand. They listen more than they talk. They ask questions not to be polite, but to gather information, to read the room, to watch patterns form. Because in conversation, the one who speaks less often holds the most power. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Now imagine applying that filter to every word you say. How many fewer arguments would you have? How much more energy would you save? How much more mysterious and respected would you become? We live in a time where people overshare by default. Social media has trained us to broadcast every thought, every opinion, every little reaction. But those who speak with intention stand out. Those who pause before they speak, they leave others guessing. And guess what mystery is power? When people can't quite read you, they become curious. They lean in, they overthink. They project depth onto your silence, and often they're right. Because silence backed by wisdom becomes a strategy. It creates space. It makes others wonder what you're really thinking, and that wonder builds tension, presence, and influence. Think of it like poker. The best players don't show their cards. They study yours. They watch your breath, your hesitation, your tone, and they keep theirs unreadable. Talking too much is like laying your cards on the table before the game even starts. Why would you give away your hand? When you speak less, you conserve energy, you protect your inner peace, and you become unpredictable in the best way. And here's the paradox. The less you say, the more weight your words carry. People start to lean in when you speak because they know it means something. You're not just another noise in the crowd. You're a signal, a rare voice in a sea of static. So next time you feel the urge to explain everything, to defend yourself, to fill the silence, pause. Ask, is this worth spending my energy on, or am I giving away more than I gain? Because remember, words are currency. Spend them like gold, not loose change. And when you finally speak, let it count. Have you ever noticed? The people who command the most respect are often the ones who say the least. They walk into a room and don't need to raise their voice. They don't beg for attention. They don't interrupt to prove they're smart. They just are. And it's not arrogance, it's not coldness. It's the power of purposeful silence. You see, there's a kind of silence that isn't passive, it's intentional. It doesn't scream, "Look at me." It whispers, "I know who I am." This is the silence of someone who has clarity, of someone who has done the inner work, someone who doesn't need to compete for a spotlight because they already own their energy. In a world addicted to noise, this kind of silence is magnetic. It draws people in. It makes them pay attention, not because you're loud, but because you're still, because you're grounded, because you're not trying to convince anyone, and that's exactly why they trust you. The Stoics believed that true power isn't something you broadcast, it's something you embody. Marcus Aurelius led an empire not with grand speeches, but with composed presence. He once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That quote alone is a lesson in silence. You don't need to argue to earn respect. You don't need to explain your worth to everyone. You just need to be the kind of person whose actions, whose energy, whose stillness speaks louder than words. Have you ever been around someone who doesn't say much, but when they do, everyone listens? That's not an accident. That's the result of strategic silence. They don't fill every gap with noise. They wait, they observe. They choose their words like a sculptor, chooses their tools carefully, deliberately. And when they finally speak, it lands. It shifts the room. Because people know this person doesn't talk just to talk. So here's the question. Are you speaking to be heard, or are you silent to be remembered? There's a huge difference. Purposeful silence is not about avoidance. It's about alignment. You speak when it adds value, and you stay silent when the room needs presence, not noise. This kind of silence is a boundary. It says, I'm not here to prove anything. I'm here to protect my peace. It's the silence of a person who has nothing to hide and nothing to prove, but everything to offer when the moment is right. You don't get that kind of presence overnight. You earn it through discipline, through emotional clarity, through learning to sit with discomfort without rushing to escape it with words. So next time you're in a room and everyone's trying to be heard, try this. Don't rush to speak. Don't compete for attention. Just be still. Be intentional. Let your energy, your grounded presence do the talking, because respect isn't something you ask for. It's something people give when your silence carries more weight than most people's noise. That's the kind of silence that changes everything. Let me ask you something. When someone disrespects you, when life throws chaos at your feet, when your emotions start to rise, what do? Most people react quickly, emotionally, loudly, because reacting feels powerful in the moment. But that's not strength. That's reflex. The Stoics saw things differently. They believed the most dangerous man in the room is not the one who explodes, but the one who pauses, who thinks, who analyzes instead of reacts. Because here's the truth. Most people miss. Not everything deserves your energy. Not every insult needs a comeback. And not every problem is personal. When something triggers you, ask this instead. Why did this happen? Who benefits from my reaction? What's the hidden game being played here? This is what I call layered thinking. It's the difference between being emotionally hijacked and staying in command of your own mind. Take a moment and think about it. How many times have you regretted something you said in anger? How many times did a 5-second reaction create a 5-week problem? Now imagine if you paused, took a breath, and instead of reacting, you investigated. That's what Marcus Aurelius trained himself to do. He didn't just ask, what happened? He asked, what story am I telling myself about what happened? Because behind every emotional outburst is usually a false narrative. You think someone ignored you, so you assume they don't respect you. You think someone criticized you, so you assume they hate you. But what if their actions had nothing to do with you at all? That's why emotional detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. In Stoicism, emotional mastery starts with mental separation. It's saying, I acknowledge this feeling, but I don't have to obey it. And this kind of thinking requires discipline. It's not natural, especially in today's world, where outrage is currency and quick reactions are rewarded. But here's the paradox. The more reactive you are, the more predictable you become. And the more predictable you are, the easier it is to manipulate you. Think about that. If someone knows how to trigger you, they can control you without lifting a finger. They don't need strength, they just need strategy. That's why deep thinkers are dangerous, because you can't provoke them. You can't bait them into chaos. They've trained themselves to pause, observe, and act only when the time is right. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, try this. Instead of flinching, zoom out. Zoom out from your feelings. Zoom out from the noise. Ask yourself, is this really about me, or is this about them? What's the larger pattern here? If I respond emotionally, am I feeding a fire that should have burned out on its own? Because the mind that sees through the layers is the mind that cannot be fooled. This is not weakness. This is next-level strength. And it's a mindset you can train like a muscle. Start with the small moments. A rude email, a passive-aggressive comment, an unexpected setback. Don't let it drag you into impulsive reaction. Let it become your training ground. Use every trigger as a mirror. Ask what part of me wants to explode right now. Then ask what would the wisest version of me do instead. Because here's the truth. Your reaction is your reputation, your silence, your analysis, your restraint. That's your power, and power isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, patient, unshakable. So be the one who steps back when others charge in. Be the one who listens while others shout. Be the one who sees clearly while everyone else is blinded by emotion. That's how you win without fighting. That's how you lead without shouting. That's how you evolve while others stay stuck on the surface. Deep thinking isn't just wise. In a reactive world, it's revolutionary. Let me ask you something. Are you playing checkers with your life? Or are you playing chess? Because here's the truth most people overlook. Life is not a game of reaction. It's a game of prediction. And if you're always responding to the last move, you're already 3 moves behind. Most people operate like they're playing tic-tac-toe, simple surface-level moves, emotional decisions, instant gratification. They get flattered and they trust. They get criticized and they lash out. They get invited and they follow blindly. But here's the reality. Every interaction you face is a move on the board. A compliment could be a distraction. An opportunity might be a test. A crisis might be a setup. And the ones who survive thrive even are the ones who don't just react. They anticipate. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But let's take that a step further. You don't just gain power by controlling yourself in the moment. You become dangerous when you learn to see what's coming before it arrives. That's the chess mindset. Instead of thinking, "What should I do now?" you ask, "If I do this, what happens next?" You see 10 steps down the road, not just one. Let me give you a real-world example. Someone gives you a lavish compliment in public. Your ego lights up. You feel seen, valued, but the chess player in you pauses and asks, "Why now? What do they gain from saying this? Am I being softened for the next move?" That pause, that awareness, is power. Because not every smile is sincere. Not every helping hand is clean. And not every opportunity is meant to help you rise. It might just be bait in disguise. When you play chess, you learn that the best traps are never obvious. They're layered, strategic, wrapped in kindness, urgency, or false praise. And the emotionally reactive person, they fall for it every time. The Stoics taught us to detach from the noise of the moment, so we can rise into clarity, so we can see not just what's happening, but why it's happening. That's why I always say, ask deeper questions. Don't take things at face value. If someone suddenly creates a crisis in your life, ask, is this really my problem? Or is this manipulation disguised as chaos? If someone offers you a deal that sounds too good to be true, ask, what would I lose if I say yes too quickly? And when someone flatters you, ask, what are they building me up for? Because every move someone makes around you, whether obvious or subtle, has a reason. And if you're not seeing the game, you're probably the piece being moved. Here's what separates the chess mind from the checkers player: patience. discipline, strategy. While everyone else rushes to respond, you take your time to observe. While others get triggered, you stay centered and calculate. You learn that silence is not emptiness, it's data gathering. That waiting is not weakness, it's observation before execution. Remember, the one who speaks last often speaks with the most weight. The one who moves least often holds the strongest position. The one who watches most often wins the war no one saw coming. So how do you build this kind of thinking? Here's how: detach emotionally before making decisions. If your heart's racing or your pride is wounded, you're not thinking, you're reacting. Wait, breathe. Then think 10 moves ahead. Study the patterns of people. Observe how they act under stress, how they treat those with less power, and what they do when no one's watching. That reveals their true playbook. Assume nothing is random. Assume every move has intent, even if it's unconscious. The better you understand motive, the less likely you are to be manipulated. Think in consequences, not comfort. Don't ask what feels good now. Ask what's the ripple effect of this decision. Strategic people don't think in moments, they think in maps. Because the longer you play chess, the less life surprises you. You start to expect the traps. You prepare for the betrayals. You plan for the storms, so when they come, you're not drowning, you're already building. This doesn't mean you live in paranoia. It means you live in awareness. And when you become this aware, you stop being the pawn. You start becoming the player. Let me leave you with this: anyone can react, but very few can anticipate. The first leads to chaos. The second builds empires. So the next time life makes a move, don't respond immediately. Lean back. Think like a strategist. Ask yourself not just what's next, but what's 10 steps ahead. Let's get one thing clear. Silence isn't empty. It's loaded. In a world obsessed with constant noise, opinions, updates, arguments, the one who knows when not to speak holds a power that most people can't even understand. You see, people think communication is all about words, but the most powerful messages are sent without saying anything at all. When you walk into a room and don't speak, people watch you closer. When you pause instead of react, others fill the silence with their truth. And when you refuse to explain yourself, suddenly you become unpredictable. And here's the thing: people can't manipulate what they can't read. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a conversation where someone keeps talking, trying to impress, dominate, or extract information from you, and you just sit there listening, saying less? What happened? Eventually, they exposed their motives. Because silence is a mirror. It makes people reveal who they are. This is not passive behavior. It's strategic restraint. It's emotional discipline, and it's one of the most underused tools of true leadership. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They didn't speak just to fill space. They waited, they listened, they observed. Because when you speak less, you gather more. When you pause, you see what others are trying to hide. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." That wasn't just advice for being polite, it was a tactical principle for powerful living. Because here's what happens when you master the art of calculated silence. You become harder to read. And when people can't read you, they can't control you. That gives you a psychological edge in any interaction, personal or professional. You force others to reveal themselves. Silence makes people uncomfortable. In that discomfort, they start talking often more than they intended. That's when truth leaks out. You preserve your energy. Not every fight needs a response. Not every comment deserves clarification. The person who picks their moments carefully is the one who commands attention when they do speak. This isn't about being cold or distant. It's about being deliberate. When you choose silence with intention, you're not avoiding connection. You're elevating it. Let me give you an example. In negotiations, the person who speaks first often loses leverage. Why? Because the person who waits learns. They see who's impatient, who's insecure, who's bluffing, and in relationships, the one who doesn't always explain themselves commands more respect because they're not trying to convince, they're simply being. Silence, when chosen consciously, is a demonstration of self-trust. You don't need to shout to be understood. You don't need to respond to every jab to prove your strength. And you definitely don't need to overshare to build connection. Sometimes your quiet presence is your loudest statement. Now some people will try to make you feel guilty for being quiet. They'll accuse you of being cold, distant, arrogant. But ask yourself, are they upset that you're not speaking, or are they frustrated that they can't control the space anymore? See, predictable people are easy to handle. You know exactly what will trigger them, how they'll respond, where their boundaries are soft. But the one who holds their silence, they become the wild card. They become the one others tiptoe around, not because they're aggressive, but because they're unreadable. That's true power, not domination, but emotional depth and control. Stoic power isn't about reacting to everything, it's about choosing what deserves your energy. And sometimes silence is the sharpest sword you can wield. So here's the truth. If you want to lead, not follow. If you want to influence, not impress. If you want to build unshakable respect, master the art of silent communication. Don't rush to respond. Don't explain your every move. Don't speak just to be heard. Instead, let your presence do the talking. Let your boundaries be felt in the pauses. Let your stillness be louder than noise. And when you finally do speak, let it be with the full weight of wisdom, not reaction. Because in a loud world, the one who speaks with purpose is the one we all listen to. Let me tell you something the world rarely admits. Wisdom doesn't just come from books. It comes from pain, not the kind you read about, the kind you survive. Because real strength, it's not forged in peace. It's born in pressure, refined by heartbreak, and tempered in silence. You see, we live in a time where everyone wants to appear strong. Perfect lives, curated posts, motivational quotes. But that's not strength, that's decoration. The strongest people you'll ever meet are the ones who've been shattered and rebuilt themselves without an audience. Stoicism teaches us this: pain is not the enemy. Unexamined pain is. When something breaks you, you're at a crossroads. You can choose to escape it through distraction, denial, blame. Or you can analyze it, break it apart like a code, and understand, what is this pain trying to teach me? That's the beginning of true inner mastery. Think about it. When you go through betrayal, you learn who you really are without the mask of loyalty. When you suffer loss, you discover what truly matters, what can't be taken from you. When life humiliates you, you gain the kind of humility that no degree or job title can teach. The people who scare me the most in this world aren't loud, aren't angry, aren't trying to prove anything. They're calm, quiet, still, because they've seen darkness, they've walked through fire, and instead of becoming bitter, they became better. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That's not just a quote, it's a philosophy. When pain comes, don't rush to get rid of it. Sit with it, study it, ask it questions. What belief did this pain challenge in me? What illusion did this heartbreak destroy? What part of me is still attached to outcomes I can't control? Because the moment you stop reacting to pain and start learning from it, it turns into something rare, wisdom. And here's the paradox. The person who's never been broken may look polished, but the one who has been broken and still walks with grace, they carry a presence that's unshakable. That's the kind of man or woman people sense from across the room. Not because they speak loudly, but because their silence holds a weight that comes only from experience. So if you're going through something hard right now, don't see it as the end. See it as the forging. You're not being punished. You're being sharpened. And the pain you feel today might just become the blade you carry tomorrow. One that cuts through lies. One that protects your peace. One that reminds you survived. The world tells you, get over it. Stoicism whispers, go through it, and come out cleaner, clearer, and calmer. Because the most dangerous person is not the one who fights to be seen. It's the one who has faced hell and no longer fears the fire. Let me ask you something simple but real. When was the last time silence made the room pause? Not because someone shouted, but because someone didn't have to. See real power. Stoic power doesn't shout. It doesn't beg to be seen. It doesn't swing wildly trying to impress or intimidate. It observes, it waits, and when the moment comes, it speaks, clearly, calmly, with absolute conviction. True leadership doesn't announce itself. It's recognized by presence, the kind of presence you feel when a person walks into a room, and doesn't need to dominate because they've already mastered themselves. That's what Marcus Aurelius taught. That's what the Stoics lived. They weren't chasing applause. They were chasing alignment. Alignment between what they thought, what they felt, and how they acted. No masks, no overreactions, no trying to be anything more than centered and clear. And here's the paradox. The people who are truly powerful, they don't even want power anymore. They've outgrown the game. They've stopped needing to win every argument. They've stopped explaining themselves to those who misunderstand them. And they've stopped reacting to noise because they've tuned into something deeper, stillness. Stillness is a decision. It's not passivity. It's not avoidance. It's restraint, disciplined presence. It's knowing that most chaos isn't yours to fix. Most drama isn't worth your energy, and most battles aren't worth fighting because you've already won the one inside. You've already answered the only question that matters: who am I when no one's watching? That's what makes you dangerous in the best way possible. You're not dangerous because you dominate. You're dangerous because you don't need to. You're not fragile. You're forged. Forged in silence, refined in solitude. And now you move with clarity, not desperation. So the next time you're tempted to shout just to be heard, pause, breathe. Remember, the man who silences the room isn't the one who screams. It's the one who's been through storms in silence and came back with unshakable inner control. That's you. That's what we're building here. If you're ready to lead with stillness, to live with depth, and to stop reacting to everything that tries to pull you off center, then welcome. You're not just part of the conversation, you're part of the Stoic movement. Because when you no longer seek power, that's when you become it.